The ceasefire is well and truly over. Israel has resumed bombing targets Hamas targets in Gaza. Gaza's and the Hamas-run health ministry says hundreds of people have died in just the last 24 hours. Let's get an update now. Live from Tel Aviv, joining me is Israel's Defence Force spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. Jonathan, thanks so much for your time, as always. You have told people in Gaza, as I understand it, to move south, but you're now targeting the south. Is that correct?
Good morning, Laura. Thank you for having me on the show. We are indeed operating all over the Gaza Strip, wherever Hamas is. And we have indeed, as you say, in the weeks past, asked Palestinian civilians to evacuate from the combat area in the north to other areas in the south. And what we are doing now is to, in a very detailed manner, based on a high-resolution map of neighborhoods in Palestinian cities, asking select areas of Palestinians to evacuate to other areas in order for them to be out of where the main fighting is being conducted. It's a complex situation. It's not easy at all. We understand that there are difficulties on the ground, and we understand that there is great danger and discomfort for Palestinians, but at the end of the day, we have no choice but to fight where the enemy is if we are to defeat the enemy, and that is what we are going to do.
You must know it's futile then for you to tell people to move away from Hamas centres when you know that they deliberately move among Palestinians, these terrorists, I mean.
I don't think it is futile, because what Hamas cannot move is their infrastructure, their weapons, the rocket launchers, and the tunnels. And what they've done, Hamas, is to build all of that infrastructure underneath the cities. In this case, we're talking about Khan Yunis in southern Gaza and Rafah, but before that, we spoke about Gaza City in the north. And at the end of the day, our aim is to dismantle the infrastructure and, of course, take out the Hamas operatives. And we will do that wherever they are.
I just want to clarify something, because Israel in recent days has identified safe zones, if I can put it that way, where Palestinians can move to and seek refuge. One of those areas, Al-Mawasi, as I understand it. And I want to show you pictures of Al-Mawasi, because there were some claims that, in fact, there are aid tents set up there, that aid agencies were operating in this area. But these are the latest pictures we have from Al-Mawasi. It's desolate. It doesn't look like there are any aid tents there. Is this an example of one of the safe zones that Israel is telling people to move to?
Well, I commend Sky Australia. These are the first pictures that I've seen of that area, so that's a good service to viewers. And without being able to verify it on the ground, I think that what you're showing is a correct depiction of what's happening. Now, why is that? The reason is, despite the fact that we have designated this area weeks ago and have been asking Palestinians to go there, what has not happened is that we have not seen international aid organizations participate in this and actually help in building the infrastructure there. It's important to understand that it's not close to Israel. It's on the other side of the Gaza Strip, so we cannot reach it yet. We don't have troops there. And it really relies on if UNRWA and the World Health Organization and others are willing to help. So far, what we're seeing is that these organizations continue to, let's say, uphold the current regime of Hamas and are actually, I think, putting people, Palestinians, in dangerous situations because they are not helping people to evacuate. There is room for people to evacuate too. We do not fire into that specific area. No. And I'll tell you why we don't fire, because there's no Hamas infrastructure there and there are no Hamas combatants there. And that's why we have designated that as a safe area. And what we are hopeful that will happen is that international organizations will be true to their mandate and help us in protecting Palestinian civilians from the hardship of the fighting and build that area. And then people can seek refuge there.
Well, Jonathan, isn't it true to say that several aid workers, hundreds, have lost their lives? And this is not from Hamas. This is not from the Hamas-run health ministry. This is from those very aid agencies that have reported dozens upon dozens of aid workers that have lost their lives whilst trying to help Palestinians in Gaza over the last couple of weeks. it's a little bit trite to say that, they need to move from A to B, isn't it? Don't they need to go where the people need them the most? Or are you saying that their job is to lead Palestinians and set up essentially a new refugee camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is essentially what they should be doing. If they really care about protecting civilians from the horrors of war, then we are offering that as a temporary solution or an amelioration of the situation. And if they really care about Palestinian civilians, then yes, that is what they should be doing. Of course, it is sad and unfortunate that aid workers are amongst those that have been affected. They are not the target, but I think that UNRWA retains capabilities to operate and run their facilities, and it would be good if they helped to get civilians out of the battlefield instead of erecting internally displaced centers in the heart of the civilian population in the crowded cities in the south, in Khan Yunis and in Rafah. It's not very helpful. It's helpful if they were to be out of the locations where Hamas isn't.
Aren't you asking aid workers essentially to be more involved in the conflict than that either side is willing them to be on? Because we've spoken previously about Hamas's tactics. They've stopped Palestinians, hundreds of families from moving south into these safe zones. So it really puts these aid workers in a tough position. Or are you particularly critical?
Yeah, I think that what they are doing so far is choosing the side of Hamas, because what they are doing is actively adding to the complexity on the ground. It is adding additional internally displaced Palestinians from the north in areas where Hamas is active, where we are going to fight because we're going to target Hamas and we need to get rid of Hamas. And the fact that UNRWA so far has decided not to evacuate, not to help Palestinians evacuate to the humanitarian designated zone, I think it's extremely unfortunate. And I don't think that it is helpful if we're talking about saving Palestinians. I think that they should make an effort and make a decision not to help Hamas have additional civilian casualties, but to help Palestinians save themselves.
So are you accusing the UN Refugee Agency of actually actively helping Hamas, or you're saying that's essentially the effect of what is happening on the ground?
What we're seeing now is that there are hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that are in southern Gaza. We have provided an option, which I think should be exploited and should be pursued, to get civilians out of the battlefield. So far, we're not seeing support and action by the same organizations that allegedly are supposed to help and protect Palestinians. Civilians. I think that is unfortunate, and I hope that it will change.
Okay, one final question. Has the mission changed since the ceasefire ended?
No, it has not. Our mission is to dismantle and destroy Hamas, to make sure that there are no military capabilities from Gaza that threaten Israeli civilians, and to take apart their political, administrative ability, and to get our hostages back. That is the focus. We have 137 hostages still remaining in Hamas captivity, most of them alive, 17 women and children, and some of them are bodies of dead Israelis. All of them will be returned, and Hamas will be dismantled, and Israelis will come back to their homes after this war is over.
So if Sinwar was killed or captured tomorrow and you got the hostages back, would that be the end of the war?
Sinwar killed or captured, the higher echelon of the organization killed or captured, a certain percentage of the rank and file out of commission, and their weapons degraded and hostages returned. That would be a very, very good step in the right direction. It would definitely save a lot of Palestinian lives and our troops' lives as well.
Jonathan Conricus, Lieutenant Colonel, we really appreciate your time as always.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.